Marry me. The words hung in the air between them, absurd and electric. Madelyn stared at him, certain she'd misheard. Excuse me. Marry me, he repeated, more firmly this time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a diamond ring that caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. Mr. Harrington, this is insane. You don't know me. I know enough, he countered, stepping closer. I know you're not afraid of me, unlike everyone else in my life. I know there's fire in you. His eyes darkened. $3 million. Marry me for 1 year. Madelyn's mind reeled. Why? Why me? Because when you slapped me, it was the first real thing I've felt in years. Welcome back to Mock Stories, my beloved viewers. I appreciate each and every one of you who has joined me today for another tale of unexpected romance and life-changing moments. Before we begin, I want to say a special prayer for all of my faithful subscribers. May the path ahead of you be filled with light even on your darkest days. May you find strength when challenges arise, and may opportunities that transform your life appear when you least expect them. May you recognize your own worth and value, just as our characters in today's story will discover theirs. Now, let's dive into our story of how one accidental slap changed 2 lives forever. The first time Madelyn Reed slapped Tyler Harrington, it wasn't intentional. Her palm connected with his cheek with such force that the sound reverberated through the hotel suite. The shock on his face mirrored her own horror as she realized what she'd done, and more importantly, who he was. Mr. Harrington, Madelyn's voice caught in her throat, her hazel eyes wide with panic. She had just struck the CEO of Harrington Enterprises, one of the most powerful men in New York. And her employer. Tyler's jaw clenched as his piercing blue eyes locked onto hers. But instead of the rage she expected, his expression softened, a curious smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Interesting, he murmured, rubbing his reddened cheek. No one's dared to touch me like that in years. Madelyn's heart hammered against her ribs. She had been working at the Grand Summit Hotel for 3 years, cleaning rooms to support herself while pursuing her degree. This was meant to be a routine cleaning of the presidential suite. She hadn't expected to find anyone inside, especially not Tyler Harrington himself, who she'd accidentally struck when she turned too quickly with her arms full of fresh towels. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know anyone was here. I'll leave immediately. She moved to gather her cleaning cart, but Tyler stepped in front of her, blocking her path. What's your name? He asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Madelyn. Madelyn Reed. Madelyn, he repeated, as if tasting the name. You're not going anywhere. Her stomach dropped. Are you going to report me? Please, I need this job. Marry me. The words hung in the air between them, absurd and electric. Madelyn stared at him, certain she'd misheard. Excuse me. Marry me, he repeated, more firmly this time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a diamond ring that caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. This belonged to my grandmother. I've been carrying it for months, waiting for the right moment, for the right woman. Madelyn backed away, nearly tripping over her cart. Mr. Harrington, this is insane. You don't know me. I know enough, he countered, stepping closer. I know you're not afraid of me, unlike everyone else in my life. I know there's fire in you. His eyes darkened. And I know that when you touched me, even as a slap, it was the first real connection I've felt in years. You're out of your mind. Madelyn shook her head, trying to make sense of the situation. People don't just propose to strangers. I'm not people. I'm Tyler Harrington. There was no arrogance in his voice, just simple fact. And I'm tired of calculated business arrangements masked as relationships. For once, I want something real. Something unexpected. This is crazy, she whispered, but something in his gaze made her pulse quicken. $3 million, he said, watching her carefully. Marry me for 1 year. When it's over, you walk away with $3 million, no strings attached. Madelyn thought of her mother sitting in their small apartment, oxygen tank at her side, medical bills piling up on the kitchen table. She thought of her brother Jason, brilliant but struggling to afford his textbooks at NYU. For 3 years, she'd been working double shifts, skipping meals, barely sleeping, and still drowning in debt. Why? She asked, her voice barely audible. Why me? Why this? Tyler's expression darkened. The board is pressuring me to settle down. They think a wife will improve my image, make me seem more stable. I was planning to find someone suitable, make it a business arrangement. But when I saw you... His voice trailed off, and for a moment, vulnerability flashed across his face. There was something about you that felt right. Authentic. This is insane, Madelyn repeated, but she found herself unable to look away from him. 1 year, he said. You'll want for nothing. And afterward, you'll have financial freedom for life. That evening, Madelyn sat at her mother's bedside, watching her sleep. The apartment was small but clean, the best she could afford on her salary. Medical equipment took up most of the living room, a constant reminder of her mother's deteriorating condition. You look troubled, sweetheart, her mother said, eyes fluttering open. Despite her illness, Margaret Reed's perception remained sharp as ever. Just tired, Mom. Madelyn forced a smile, but her mother wasn't fooled. What happened today? You're never this quiet. Madelyn hesitated, then found herself spilling everything, the slap, the proposal, the money. When she finished, her mother was silent for a long moment. And what do you think of him? Not as a CEO, but as a man. I barely know him, Madelyn protested. But he seemed lonely. Underneath all that power and wealth, there was something sad in his eyes. Like recognizes like, her mother said softly, reaching for Madelyn's hand. You've been carrying too much for too long, my brave girl. Mom, you're not suggesting I actually consider this. I'm suggesting you think about what you want, for once. Not what's best for me or for Jason, but for you. Later that night, Madelyn found herself staring at the business card Tyler had pressed into her hand before she left. Against all logic, she dialed the number. Mr. Harrington. It's Madelyn Reed. About your offer. I have conditions. Name them, came his immediate response. This stays strictly business. No, physical expectations. Something flashed in his eyes, disappointment. Challenge. Agreed, he said. For now. And I finish my degree. That's non-negotiable. I'd expect nothing less. And I want everything in writing. A contract. Tyler nodded. My lawyers will draw it up immediately. Madelyn took a deep breath, hardly believing what she was about to do. Then I accept your proposal, Mr. Harrington. Tyler, he corrected, sliding the ring onto her finger with surprising gentleness. If you're going to be my wife, you should at least use my first name. The ring felt heavy and foreign on her hand, a weight of commitment, of change, of something terrifying and exhilarating all at once. This is temporary, she reminded herself aloud. Tyler's eyes darkened as he traced a finger along her jawline, making her shiver despite herself. We'll see about that. The Harrington mansion sprawled before Madelyn, a modernist palace of glass and stone nestled in the Hamptons. 3 weeks had passed since her bizarre agreement with Tyler, weeks filled with hasty legal documents, a quiet civil ceremony with only lawyers as witnesses, and the bewildering transition from hotel maid to wife of one of New York's most eligible bachelors. Home sweet home, Tyler said as he led her through the massive front doors. At least for the weekends. During the week, we'll stay at the penthouse in Manhattan. Madelyn tried not to gape at the soaring ceilings and museum-quality art that adorned the walls. This is excessive. Tyler chuckled. You'll get used to it. I don't want to get used to it, she replied honestly. This isn't real life. Something shifted in his expression, a shadow crossing his features. Real life is overrated, he murmured, but before she could respond, a sharp voice cut through the foyer. So this is her. This is the gold-digging tramp you've saddled us with. A striking woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed with Tyler's same blue eyes, descended the curved staircase, her gaze openly hostile. Mother, Tyler said, his voice taking on a coldness Madelyn hadn't heard before. I'd like you to meet my wife, Madelyn. Wife, his mother scoffed. Let's not pretend this is anything but what it is, a desperate attempt to salvage your reputation after that disaster with the Reynolds merger. She turned her icy stare to Madelyn. How much is he paying you, dear? Whatever it is, I'll double it if you walk away now. Madelyn straightened her spine, meeting the woman's gaze. Mrs. Harrington, I understand your concern for your son, but I'm not going anywhere. Mother, Tyler interrupted, Madelyn is my wife. You will respect that, or you'll find your invitations to family gatherings mysteriously lost in the mail. His mother's eyes narrowed. The board won't stand for this farce. A hotel maid? What were you thinking? The board doesn't run my personal life, Tyler replied evenly. Now, if you'll excuse us, I'd like to show my wife to our room. As Tyler led her away, Madelyn could feel his mother's venomous stare boring into her back. I'm sorry about that, he said quietly once they were alone in the elevator. My mother has strong opinions. She loves you, Madelyn observed. In her own twisted way. Tyler's laugh was hollow. No, she loves what I represent, the Harrington legacy. There's a difference. The elevator doors opened to reveal a private floor. This entire level is ours, he explained, leading her through a sleek living area to a massive master suite. Where will I be staying? Madelyn asked, noting the single king-sized bed dominating the room. Tyler raised an eyebrow. We're married, Madelyn. We share a bed. But our agreement said no physical expectations. It didn't say separate bedrooms. His voice softened as he registered her discomfort. The bed is big enough that we won't even touch. And what kind of message would it send to the household staff if we slept separately from day one? Madelyn reluctantly agreed, though the prospect of sharing such an intimate space with this virtual stranger sent conflicting waves of anxiety and something far more dangerous through her. That night, after a tense dinner where Tyler's mother continued her barely veiled insults, Madelyn found herself lying rigid on her side of the enormous bed, hyper-aware of Tyler's presence beside her. You can relax, he said, his voice low in the darkness. I don't bite. Unless asked nicely. Despite herself, Madelyn felt a laugh bubble up. Does that line usually work for you? I don't know. I've never tried it before. There was something disarming about the honesty in his voice. I find that hard to believe, given your reputation. He shifted, turning to face her though they remained feet apart. And what is my reputation, exactly? Rich. Powerful. Cold. A different woman every week. Ouch. But she could hear the smile in his voice. Only mostly true. Which part isn't true? There was a pause, long enough that Madelyn wondered if he'd fallen asleep. Then, quietly, the cold part. I'm not cold. I'm careful. Why? She asked, genuinely curious. Another long pause. When you grow up with people only wanting what you can give them, money, power, connections, you learn to keep your distance. It's safer. Madelyn considered this, thinking of the calculating look in his mother's eyes. That sounds lonely. It is. The simple admission hung between them, unexpectedly vulnerable. Why did you really agree to this, Madelyn? Was it just the money? She hesitated, then decided on honesty. My mother has multiple sclerosis. The treatments are expensive, and our insurance barely covers the basics. My younger brother is in his first year at NYU. I've been supporting them both since I was 19. She took a deep breath. So yes, it was the money. But also, there was something in your eyes when you proposed. Something lost. I recognized it because I've felt that way too. The silence that followed was different, charged, intimate. She felt Tyler shift slightly closer, though still not touching her. "Thank you," he said finally. "For your honesty." "Good night, Tyler," she whispered, turning away to hide the unexpected tears that had sprung to her eyes. "Good night, Mrs. Harrington." The following weeks brought a whirlwind of changes. Madelyn's mother and brother were moved to a luxury apartment close to the Manhattan penthouse, with full-time nursing care for her mother. Jason was stunned by the turn of events but grateful for the financial burden lifted from his shoulders. "I don't get it," Jason said during one of Madelyn's visits. "You barely know this guy. Aren't you scared?" "Terrified," Madelyn admitted. "But it's just for a year. And look at Mom, she's getting the best care possible now. And what does he get out of this? A wife for appearances. Stability in the eyes of his board." Jason studied his sister closely. "Just be careful, Maddie. Men like that, they're used to owning everything they touch." "I'm not owned, Jace. I'm employed. With an extremely generous compensation package." But as the days passed, the lines of their arrangement began to blur. Tyler arranged for Madelyn to have a private tutor to help with her business studies. He seemed genuinely interested in her education, often discussing her coursework over dinner. For her part, Madelyn found herself studying Tyler's business practices, offering insights that sometimes surprised him with their perception. "You're wasted as a hotel maid," he told her one evening as they reviewed a marketing proposal. "You have a natural instinct for business." "Not everyone gets to follow their instincts," she replied. "Most of us just do what's necessary." Tyler regarded her thoughtfully. "And what would you do, if necessity wasn't a factor?" "I've always wanted to start my own event planning business," she admitted. "Something small at first, focused on helping people create meaningful celebrations without breaking the bank." "Why haven't you mentioned this before?" Madelyn shrugged. "It wasn't relevant to our arrangement." Later that week, Madelyn returned from classes to find a sleek office set up in one of the penthouse's spare rooms, complete with everything she would need to develop a business plan. "What is all this?" she asked Tyler, who was leaning against the doorframe, watching her reaction. "Consider it an investment in your future," he said casually. "After all, in less than a year, you'll be a wealthy woman in need of a purpose." "I don't understand you," Madelyn said, shaking her head. "One minute you're all cold business, the next you're this." "Perhaps I don't understand myself either," he replied, and for a moment, the mask slipped, revealing a vulnerability that made her heart constrict. "But I find myself wanting to see you succeed, Madelyn. Beyond our arrangement." That night, as they lay in their customary positions on opposite sides of the bed, Madelyn found herself shifting slightly closer to the center. In the darkness, she felt Tyler's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining in silent acknowledgement of something neither was ready to name. As summer bloomed across New York, so too did something unexpected between Madelyn and Tyler. Their days fell into a comfortable rhythm, Tyler leading Harrington enterprises during the day while Madelyn attended classes and worked on her business plan. In the evenings, they would share meals, discussing their days with growing ease. One Friday evening in July, Madelyn returned to the penthouse to find it unusually quiet. No security personnel at the private elevator, no household staff preparing dinner. "Hello?" she called, slipping off her shoes at the door, a habit from her previous life she couldn't break, despite the army of cleaners now at their disposal. "In here," came Tyler's voice from the kitchen, a room he normally entered only to pour himself coffee. She found him stirring something on the stove, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, his usual impeccable suit replaced by dark jeans and a simple white button-down. "Are you cooking?" Madelyn asked, unable to hide her surprise. Tyler glanced up, a sheepish smile transforming his typically serious face. Attempting to, at least. I gave the staff the night off. I didn't know you could cook. There's a lot you don't know about me. He turned off the burner and covered the pot. Get changed. Something casual but nice. We're going out. Out. They had never been seen publicly together beyond carefully orchestrated appearances at charity galas and business functions. Yes, out. Like normal people. There was a hint of vulnerability in his smile. I thought it might be nice to have an actual date with my wife. An hour later, they were strolling through Brooklyn, anonymous in jeans and light summer attire, Tyler's famous face partially hidden under a baseball cap. He took her to a tiny Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street, where the owner greeted him by name and led them to a secluded table in the back. You come here often? Madelyn asked, surprised. This was my escape during college, Tyler admitted. When the pressure of being a Harrington became too much, I'd sneak out, take the subway here, and just breathe. I can't imagine you on the subway, Madelyn laughed. I wasn't always this. He gestured vaguely at himself. Rich? Powerful? Intimidating? Isolated, he corrected softly, his eyes meeting hers. Before the expectations, before the responsibilities, I was just Tyler. And who is just Tyler? She asked, genuinely curious. He considered this, swirling the wine in his glass. Someone who wanted to build things. Not companies or empires, but actual things. I studied engineering before my father's health declined and I had to take over the family business. You never told me that. It wasn't relevant to our arrangement, he echoed her words from weeks before, a playful glint in his eyes. The night unfolded like a dream, rich food, flowing wine, and conversation that flowed just as easily. For the first time, Madelyn found herself forgetting their arrangement, simply enjoying being with him. As they walked along the promenade later, Brooklyn Bridge illuminated against the night sky, Tyler tentatively reached for her hand. When she didn't pull away, his fingers interlaced with hers. Thank you for tonight, he said softly. It's been a long time since I felt normal. Madelyn looked up at him, seeing past the powerful CEO to the man beneath, a man who had everything and yet somehow seemed to have nothing at all. Without overthinking it, she rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was meant to be brief, a simple acknowledgement of the connection growing between them. But as Tyler's arms encircled her waist, pulling her closer, something ignited between them, a hunger that had been simmering beneath the surface for weeks. His lips moved against hers with increasing urgency, and Madelyn found herself responding with equal fervor, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing heavily. I thought this was strictly business, Tyler murmured, his forehead resting against hers. So did I, Madelyn whispered. I was wrong. That night, when they returned to the penthouse, there was no pretense of keeping to separate sides of the bed. Tyler's hands traced reverently over her body, as if mapping territory he dreamed of but never expected to explore. Madelyn surrendered to the sensations he awakened in her, marveling at how perfectly they fit together, how he seemed to intuitively know exactly how to touch her. You're sure, he whispered against her skin, his restraint evident in the tension of his muscles. I've never been more sure of anything, she replied, pulling him closer. Later, lying in the tangle of sheets with her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, Madelyn faced an uncomfortable truth. She was falling in love with her husband. Her temporary, contractual, business arrangement husband. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it filled her with a strange peace. What are you thinking about? Tyler asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. That I never expected this, she answered honestly. You. Us. Any of it. Regrets? She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. No. You. His answer came not in words but in the gentle way he pulled her down for another kiss, in the reverence with which he held her, in the whispered confessions against her skin as dawn broke over the city. As summer progressed, their relationship deepened. Weekend mornings were spent lingering over coffee on the terrace, afternoons exploring hidden corners of the city together. Tyler began accompanying Madelyn on visits to her mother, whose health was improving under the specialized care. Even Jason warmed to Tyler after seeing the genuine way he looked at Madelyn when he thought no one was watching. "He's in love with you," Jason told her bluntly during one of their brother-sister lunches. "You know that, right?" "It's complicated," Madelyn replied, stirring her iced tea. "Only because you're both making it complicated. I've never seen you like this, Maddie. You're happy. Really happy." "It's temporary," she reminded him, but the words felt hollow even to her own ears. "Does it have to be?" The question followed her home, echoing in her mind as she watched Tyler across the dinner table that evening, his focus intent on the document before him, a small furrow between his brows. She had learned to read the subtle shifts in his expressions, knew that this particular look meant he was troubled but trying not to show it. "What's wrong?" she asked. He glanced up, surprised. "Nothing. Just work." "Tyler," she said gently. "I know you better than that now." A small smile touched his lips. "Yes, I suppose you do." He set the document aside. "It's nothing serious. Just some bored resistance to a new direction I want to take the company." "Tell me," she encouraged. As he outlined his vision for shifting a significant portion of Harrington enterprises toward sustainable technology and affordable housing initiatives, Madelyn felt a surge of pride. This was the man behind the CEO facade, a man with dreams and principles, who wanted to use his position for meaningful change. "Your board doesn't share your vision?" she asked when he finished. "They're concerned about short-term profits. I'm thinking about long-term legacy." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as rare frustration. "My father built this company on the principle that business should serve community, not just shareholders. Somewhere along the way, that got lost." Madelyn reached across the table, taking his hand. "Then remind them. Show them the numbers, but also show them the humanity behind the decisions. Make them see what you see." Tyler studied her face for a long moment. "How did you get so wise, Madelyn Reed?" "Harrington," she corrected with a smile. "Madelyn Reed Harrington. At least for the next 8 months." Something flickered in his eyes. Was it pain? Before she could analyze it, he rose from his chair, pulling her up and into his arms. "For now," he murmured against her hair, and Madelyn felt a sudden chill despite the summer warmth. In that moment, she realized the true danger of their arrangement. When it ended, when she walked away with her millions and her freedom, she would be leaving her heart behind. Autumn arrived with a chill that seemed to seep into their relationship as well. What had blossomed over the summer began to wither under the weight of reality. Tyler grew increasingly distant, burying himself in work, often not returning until Madelyn was already asleep. When she asked what was wrong, he deflected, his walls rebuilding brick by brick. One evening in late September, Madelyn confronted him as he arrived home well past midnight. "Are we going to talk about what's happening?" she asked, meeting him in the foyer. Tyler looked exhausted, his tie loosened, dark circles under his eyes. "It's late, Madelyn. Can this wait until morning?" "No, it can't. You've been avoiding me for weeks. What changed? What did I do wrong?" "Nothing," he said, his voice softening. "You've done nothing wrong. Then why won't you talk to me? Why won't you look at me like you used to?" Tyler sighed, running a hand over his face. "Because it's becoming too real. And I can't afford that right now." "Can't afford it?" Madelyn echoed, hurt blooming in her chest. "What does that even mean?" "It means I have responsibilities. To the company, to the thousands of people who depend on Harrington Enterprises for their livelihoods. The board is already questioning my judgment. I can't give them more ammunition. Ammunition? Is that what I am to you now? You know that's not what I meant, Tyler said, his frustration evident. But our arrangement was supposed to be temporary. We both agreed to that. And now you're worried I'm getting too attached. That I'll want more than my $3 million when the year is up. No, Tyler replied, but something in his expression told her she'd hit close to the truth. I see. Madelyn felt a cold clarity descend. You're afraid I'll fall in love with you and complicate your life. Well, don't worry, Tyler. I'm quite clear on the terms of our contract. I won't embarrass you by asking for an extension. She turned to walk away, but Tyler caught her arm. Madelyn, wait. No, she said, pulling free. I understand perfectly now. We had a lovely summer fling, but playtime is over. You have a company to run, and I'm just the maid you're paying to warm your bed. Message received. She retreated to their bedroom, locking the door behind her. She didn't see the anguish on Tyler's face, or how he stood outside the door for nearly an hour, hand raised as if to knock, before finally walking away. The answer to Tyler's distance came in the form of a glossy envelope delivered to the penthouse one afternoon. Inside was an invitation to the annual Harrington Foundation Gala, along with a handwritten note from Tyler's mother: bring your little gold digger if you must, but be prepared for the board's decision. Your folly has gone on long enough. That evening, when Tyler returned, Madelyn confronted him. What decision is your mother talking about? He froze, his expression shuddering. You went through my things. It was delivered to me, Tyler. I am your wife, remember? The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. Tyler sighed, loosening his tie. The board is voting on whether to remove me as CEO. They believe my impulsive marriage demonstrates a lack of judgment that makes me unfit to lead. And you didn't think to tell me? Hurt bloomed in her chest. I'm the reason your career is in jeopardy. No, he said sharply. Their outdated, elitist attitudes are the reason. You're just the convenient excuse. So what happens now? Tyler's jaw tightened. I fight. I always fight. And us? Madelyn asked quietly. Where do we stand? Something flickered in his eyes, pain, regret, she couldn't be sure. Our arrangement remains. Nothing has changed. But everything had changed. The words hovered unspoken between them, the intimacy they'd shared, the nights spent tangled in each other's arms, the quiet mornings of shared coffee and secrets. All of it now overshadowed by the reality of their situation. Right, Madelyn said, her voice hollow. The arrangement. $3 million for 1 year of my life. How could I forget? She turned to leave, but Tyler caught her wrist, his grip gentle but firm. Madelyn, wait. No. She pulled away. You made your position clear. This is business, nothing more. I was foolish to imagine otherwise. The days leading up to the gala were filled with tense silence. Madelyn focused on her classes and her business plan, while Tyler worked late into the night, preparing for his confrontation with the board. They moved around each other like wary strangers, the warmth of summer a distant memory. The night of the gala arrived with a sense of impending doom. Madelyn wore a midnight blue gown that Tyler had purchased for her, her hair swept up to reveal the diamond earrings that had been his gift, for appearance's sake. They entered the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel like combatants entering an arena, Tyler's hand possessive at the small of her back. His mother intercepted them immediately, her social smile not reaching her eyes. Tyler, darling. And Madelyn. How lovely you both look. Mother, Tyler acknowledged coolly. I trust you're enjoying the evening. Oh, immensely. Her gaze slid to Madelyn. Especially knowing it may be your last as CEO. The board is meeting in the library as we speak. Madelyn felt Tyler tense beside her but was unprepared for what happened next. Actually, Mrs. Harrington, a smooth voice interrupted, the board has already concluded their meeting. They turned to find James Westbrook, the chairman of the board, regarding them with an inscrutable expression. And? Tyler's mother demanded. And we've unanimously voted to retain Tyler as CEO, Westbrook announced. Furthermore, we've expanded his control over the European divisions. Tyler's mother's face contorted with shock. That's impossible. After this scandal. What scandal? Westbrook raised an eyebrow. A man marrying a bright, educated woman who challenges him and clearly cares for him beyond his fortune. A woman who, I might add, has maintained a 4.0 GPA while managing the considerable social responsibilities of being Mrs. Harrington. He smiled at Madelyn. We've been watching you, my dear. You're exactly what this company, and Tyler, needs. As Westbrook walked away, leaving Tyler's mother sputtering with rage, Madelyn turned to Tyler. You knew about this? Not until this moment, he admitted, looking as shocked as she felt. Before they could discuss it further, another interruption came in the form of a tall, stunning woman who glided toward them with lethal grace. Tyler, she purred, ignoring Madelyn completely. It's been too long. Vanessa. Tyler's voice cooled noticeably. I wasn't aware you were invited. Your mother thought I might provide some perspective for the board. Vanessa's scarlet lips curved into a predatory smile. She was quite certain your little marriage experiment would be over by now. Then she was quite wrong, Tyler replied evenly. Madelyn, this is Vanessa Blake. My ex-fiancée. Understanding dawned like ice water in Madelyn's veins. This was the woman his mother had chosen for him, the socially acceptable match that Madelyn could never be. Charmed, Vanessa said, finally acknowledging Madelyn with a dismissive glance. Though I do wonder how long this arrangement will last once the money runs out. Money? Madelyn echoed, confusion evident in her voice. Vanessa's smile widened. Oh, didn't you know? Tyler's trust fund conditions require him to be married by 35 or forfeit the majority of his inheritance. Quite convenient timing, your little meeting. The room seemed to tilt beneath Madelyn's feet. She turned to Tyler, searching his face for denial, but found only guilt. You never mentioned a trust fund, she whispered. It wasn't relevant, he insisted, reaching for her, but she stepped back. Wasn't relevant? Madelyn's voice rose slightly. You're telling me that our entire marriage, this whole arrangement, was just about you securing your inheritance? No, Tyler said firmly, but the doubt had already taken root. Excuse me, Madelyn murmured, turning away before the tears threatening could fall. She moved blindly through the crowd, seeking escape, air, anything but the suffocating realization that perhaps she'd been a fool all along. She found herself on a terrace, the October night biting through the thin fabric of her gown. She didn't hear Tyler approach until he draped his jacket over her shoulders. It's not what you think, he said quietly. Then what is it? She turned to face him, no longer caring about the tears tracking down her cheeks. Was any of it real, Tyler? Or was I just the convenient solution to your financial problem? The trust fund is real, he admitted. But that's not why I proposed to you. I could have married anyone to secure that money, including Vanessa, who my mother had been pushing me toward for years. Then why me? Why the charade? It wasn't a charade. He stepped closer, his voice low and urgent. Not for me. I don't believe you, Madelyn said, though her heart ached to do just that. You lied to me from the beginning. Yes, I did, Tyler acknowledged, surprising her with his honesty. I lied about why I needed to marry. But I didn't lie about wanting it to be you. Why should I believe anything you say now? Because despite everything, despite my best efforts to keep this strictly business, I've fallen in love with you, Madelyn. The words hung between them, fragile and raw. Madelyn wanted desperately to believe him, but the doubt Vanessa had planted had taken root. "I need time," she whispered finally. "I need to think." Tyler nodded, the pain evident in his eyes. "I understand. But know this, whatever you decide, these past months have been the most real of my life." As they drove home in silence, Madelyn stared out the window at the city lights blurring through her tears. She had entered this arrangement with her eyes wide open, knowing it was temporary, knowing it was business. When had she allowed herself to hope for more? "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight," Tyler said quietly as they entered the penthouse. "Thank you," Madelyn managed, her voice barely audible. Alone in their bed, no, his bed, Madelyn tried to sort through her tangled emotions. The trust fund revelation felt like a betrayal, yet another secret Tyler had kept from her. But hadn't she kept secrets too? Hadn't she hidden her growing feelings, pretending their arrangement was still just business even as she fell deeper in love? Morning found her exhausted but resolved. She would see out the terms of their contract, maintain appearances as required, but protect her heart. No more illusions, no more fantasies of what could never be. But Tyler had other plans. Madelyn woke to the scent of coffee and the sound of movement in the kitchen. Wrapping herself in a robe, she ventured out to find Tyler at the stove, cooking breakfast as if it were any ordinary morning. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice still rough from crying. Tyler turned, his expression serious but determined. "Making you breakfast. And then we're going to talk, really talk, about us." "There is no us, Tyler. There's a contract, with an expiration date. Is that what you want? For this to just be business until the end?" The question hung between them, deceptively simple yet impossibly complex. "What I want doesn't matter," Madelyn replied finally. "We made a deal. Deals can be renegotiated." Tyler set 2 plates on the table and pulled out her chair. "Please, Madelyn. At least hear me out." Reluctantly, she sat, watching as he took the seat across from her. The Tyler before her wasn't the polished CEO or even the passionate lover she'd come to know over the summer. This was a man laid bare, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen him. "The trust fund is real," he began without preamble. "My grandfather was a controlling man who believed in the stability of marriage. He left the bulk of his fortune in trust, with the condition that I marry before turning 35 or forfeit it to charity." "So you needed a wife by your birthday," Madelyn concluded flatly. "Yes. But I was planning to propose to Vanessa, a mutually beneficial arrangement. She'd get the status and lifestyle she wanted, I'd secure the inheritance and get the board off my back about settling down." "Romantic," Madelyn murmured sarcastically. "It wasn't meant to be romantic. It was meant to be practical." Tyler leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Then I met you. Or rather, you slapped me." Despite herself, Madelyn felt a small smile tug at her lips at the memory. "In that moment," Tyler continued, "I saw something real. Someone who didn't calculate every move, who wasn't playing some angle. The proposal was impulsive, I admit that. But it wasn't about the money, Madelyn. It was about wanting something genuine for once in my life. But you still lied about why you needed to marry." "I did," he acknowledged. "I was afraid if you knew about the trust fund, you'd think that was my only motivation. I wanted you to believe you were helping me with the board, not helping me secure money." "So you lied to protect your ego?" "I lied to protect the possibility of something real between us," Tyler corrected. "But in doing so, I undermined the very thing I was trying to build." Madelyn studied his face, searching for deception but finding only raw sincerity. "When did you know," she asked softly, "that this was becoming real for you?" "That first night, when you told me about your mother and brother. When you shared your burden with me without asking for anything in return." His voice softened. "But I fought it. God, how I fought it. I told myself it was just physical attraction, just novelty, just anything but what it actually was. Which was love, Madelyn. The word fell between them, simple yet profound. I've been falling in love with you since the moment you slapped me. And it terrified me. So you pulled away, she realized. You started working late, avoiding me. I thought if I could re-establish boundaries, protect myself, I could control these feelings. But then the board situation escalated, and my mother got involved, and everything spiraled. He reached across the table, his hand palm up in offering. I've handled this all wrong. But I'm asking you now, with complete honesty, give us a chance. A real chance, not as a business arrangement but as two people who found something unexpected and precious. Madelyn looked at his outstretched hand, wanting desperately to take it yet still held back by doubt. How do I know this isn't just another calculated move? The board has affirmed you, your inheritance is secure. Maybe now you're just trying to smooth things over until our contract ends. Tyler withdrew his hand, nodding as if he'd expected this response. You're right to be cautious. I've given you every reason to doubt me. He rose from the table. Wait here. He disappeared into his office, returning moments later with a thick folder which he placed before her. What's this? Madelyn asked, opening it to find legal documents. I had my lawyers draft this last month. It transfers half of my personal fortune, not the company assets, but my own money, into your name, unconditionally. It's yours regardless of whether you stay with me or leave, whether we remain married or divorce. He sat back down, his expression calm but his eyes betraying his anxiety. I want you to be with me because you choose to be, not because you need the money from our agreement. Madelyn stared at the documents, stunned by the magnitude of what they represented. Tyler, this is billions. Money means nothing to me without you, Madelyn. I'd give it all away if it meant you'd believe me when I say I love you. The simplicity of his declaration, the naked vulnerability in his eyes, broke through the last of her defenses. I love you too, she whispered, the words she'd been holding back for months finally set free. I've been fighting it too, telling myself it was temporary, that I shouldn't get attached. But it's too late. I already am. Tyler moved around the table, kneeling beside her chair and taking her hands in his. Then marry me, Madelyn Reed. Not for a contract, not for money, but because what we've found together is worth fighting for. We're already married, she reminded him, a smile breaking through her tears. On paper, yes. But I want to marry you for real. With vows we mean, with promises we intend to keep. No expiration date, no exit clauses. Madelyn searched his eyes, finding nothing but sincerity. You should have told me the truth from the beginning, she said softly. I know. I was afraid. I've spent my life surrounded by people who only saw what I could give them. When I found someone who gave to me instead, who gave me honesty, challenge, companionship, I was too scared to trust it. He stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. But I'm not scared anymore. I'm asking you, for real this time, stay with me. Not for a year, not for money, but because what we've found together is worth fighting for. Madelyn searched his eyes, finding nothing but sincerity. I slapped you the day we met, she reminded him, a small smile tugging at her lips. Tyler grinned. Best thing that ever happened to me. Your mother hates me. She'll come around. Or she won't. Either way, I choose you. Madelyn took a deep breath, making her decision. I love you too, you know. Despite my better judgment. The relief and joy that transformed his face was answer enough, but his kiss, tender, passionate, promising, sealed their new understanding, their real beginning. So, Tyler murmured against her lips, what do you say, Mrs. Harrington? Ready to turn our business arrangement into something a bit more permanent? I might be persuaded, Madelyn whispered, her heart full to bursting as she pulled him down for another kiss, no longer the maid who had accidentally slapped a CEO, but the woman who had accidentally found love in the most unexpected of places. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected love and second chances, hit that like button now and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us that sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings come from the most unexpected moments. 6 months later, Madelyn stood on the terrace of their Hamptons home, watching as guests mingled on the sprawling lawn below. The spring air was fragrant with flowers, the setting sun casting a golden glow over the white tents and rows of chairs. "Nervous?" a voice asked from behind her. Madelyn turned to find her brother Jason, handsome in his tuxedo. "A little," she admitted. "It feels strange to be having a wedding when we're already married." "But this time it's real," Jason said, offering his arm. "Ready to walk down the aisle, sis?" As they descended the stairs to the garden, Madelyn felt a sense of wonder at how completely her life had transformed in just over a year. Her mother, now in remission, waited in the front row. Beside her sat a surprisingly cordial Mrs. Harrington Sr., who had gradually, if reluctantly, come to accept Madelyn after witnessing her son's genuine happiness. And at the end of the aisle stood Tyler, his eyes finding hers with a look of such profound love that Madelyn felt her breath catch. "You're beautiful," he whispered as Jason placed her hand in his. "Not so bad yourself," she replied, taking in his tuxedo and the boyish way his hair refused to stay perfectly combed. As they exchanged vows, real vows this time, promises made from the heart rather than a legal contract, Madelyn reflected on the journey that had brought them here. An accidental slap, an impulsive proposal, a business arrangement that had blossomed into something neither of them had been seeking but both had desperately needed. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared, though they had technically been married for over a year. "You may kiss the bride." As Tyler's lips met hers, sealing their renewed commitment, the assembled guests erupted in applause. But Madelyn heard only the beating of her own heart and Tyler's whispered words against her lips, "Best business decision I ever made." Later, as they swayed together for their first dance, Tyler held her close, his voice low in her ear. "Happy?" "Completely," she answered truthfully. "Though I do have one regret." Tyler pulled back slightly, concern crossing his features. "What's that?" "I wish I'd slapped you sooner," Madelyn replied with a mischievous smile. His laughter, warm and genuine, drew curious glances from nearby guests. "You know," Tyler mused, "most people think I rescued you from a life of struggle. But the truth is, you rescued me from a life without meaning. Without love." "We rescued each other," Madelyn corrected. "That's what partnership is." As the evening progressed, Madelyn found herself in conversation with James Westbrook, the board chairman who had so unexpectedly supported them. "I must admit," she told him, "I've always wondered why you stood up for us that night at the gala. You hardly knew me." Westbrook's eyes twinkled with amusement. "On the contrary, Mrs. Harrington. I've been watching you both carefully from the moment your marriage was announced. And do you know what I saw?" "What?" "I saw Tyler Harrington, the man I've known since he was a boy, finally become the leader his father always hoped he would be. Under your influence, he stopped trying to please the board and started leading with conviction. He remembered that business isn't just about profits, it's about people." "I didn't do anything," Madelyn protested. "You did the most important thing of all, you reminded him of who he truly is." Westbrook nodded toward Tyler, who was chatting animatedly with a group that included both corporate executives and staff from Madelyn's new event planning business. "That man over there is finally comfortable in his own skin. And a man who knows himself makes the best kind of leader." As the celebration continued around them, Tyler found his way back to Madelyn's side, sliding an arm around her waist. "What's next for us, Mrs. Harrington?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Well, Mr. Harrington," she replied, leaning into his embrace, "I was thinking we might want to expand our family." Tyler's eyes widened, his hand instinctively moving to her stomach. "Are you?" Madelyn laughed, shaking her head. "Not yet. But soon, perhaps. If you're ready. The joy that illuminated his face was answer enough, but his whispered, yes, against her lips sealed the promise of their future together. As the night drew to a close, they stood alone on the terrace where Madelyn had prepared for the ceremony hours earlier. The stars shone brightly overhead, the distant sound of the ocean providing a gentle soundtrack to their moment of quiet. You know, Tyler mused, when I think about how easily we might never have met, if you hadn't been assigned to clean the presidential suite that day, if I hadn't decided to return early from my meeting. If I hadn't accidentally slapped you, Madelyn added with a smile. Exactly. He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. It makes me think that some things are meant to be, even if they begin in the most unexpected ways. Like a maid and a CEO falling in love. Like two people finding exactly what they needed in the last place they thought to look. Tyler's eyes held hers, sincere and full of love. I spent my whole life believing that control was the key to success, controlling my image, my emotions, my future. Then one slap from you sent it all spinning, and in losing control, I found something infinitely more valuable. What's that? Madelyn asked softly, though she already knew the answer. A life worth living, Tyler replied. A love worth fighting for. As they sealed this truth with a kiss beneath the stars, Madelyn reflected on the moral of their unlikely love story. Sometimes, the most perfect beginnings arise from imperfect moments. Sometimes, what looks like a business transaction can become a soul-deep connection. And sometimes, the hand that strikes you might be the very one destined to hold your heart. Because love doesn't follow contracts or schedules or social expectations. It arrives when we least expect it, often in disguise, testing our courage to recognize it and our strength to embrace it. And for those brave enough to see beyond appearances and calculated arrangements, the reward is a happiness no amount of money could ever buy. I love you, Madelyn Reed Harrington, Tyler whispered against her lips. Now and always. And I love you, she replied, no longer the maid who had accidentally slapped a CEO, but simply a woman who had found her place in the world, in the arms of the man who saw her not for what she could give him, but for who she truly was. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button right now and subscribe to our channel for more tales of unexpected love and life-changing moments. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin with what seems